the person who inspired this little get-together. My given name is Dicey Langston, but everyone just calls me Dicey. Because who names a baby Dicey? Well, my mother. And I never could ask her why, because she died when I was 3. Anyways, people tell a lot of stories about me, but this is the best one. I grew up in these parts before there even was a city of Greenville. I lived on a big farm with my father and 3 older brothers about 30 miles south of here. The name of the town was 96, and it's still on the map. You can look it up. The town in 96 was a part of a much bigger territory called District 96. I guess back then people didn't want to waste a whole lot of imagination coming up with names for places. It was 1780, and the fight for independence was dragging on and on. You may say, well, wait a minute. Didn't America declare its independence in 1776? Wasn't it a done deal after that? No, it wasn't. The British retook Charleston in 1780 and then tried to retake the entire Broadway colony of South Carolina. In 1780, our little town was overrun with hundreds of British soldiers and their local sympathizers, the Loyalists. My family sided with the Patriots, who were on the side of independence, but we were outnumbered. Those were tense times. Patriot against Loyalist, neighbor against neighbor. I even had relatives who were Loyalists. So, I found that if I kept my head down and my ears open, I could pick up all kinds of useful information to pass along to my brothers, who came by our house every so often, though they were mainly off on secret missions with the Patriot forces. Everyone knew where my family's sympathies lay, and as the hostilities ramped up, the Loyalists confronted my father and me and accused us of being spies. They threatened my father. If either you or your daughter aid in the Patriot forces, we'll throw you into prison and seize your land. Well, I'm no spy, he told them, and neither is Dicey. How could you even think a 15-year-old girl is capable of such things? All eyes went to me. I tried my best to look demure and simple-minded. Later on, in private, he made me promise no more undercover activities. I loved my father. I promised I'd try. So, that's all the background. This is my story. The sky had just cleared after 3 days of rain, and our little town was a mess of puddles. My horse had thrown a shoe that morning, so I was running some errands on foot. And on the way home, I passed a bunch of redcoats and their Loyalist pals at a table in front of our local tavern. They'd had a few beers, and were talking too freely, when I heard them mention an outpost called Little Eden. I knew our Patriot troops were gathering in secret there, so I stopped and listened. None of those redcoats even gave me a glance. They were plotting on how the next morning, a gang of Loyalists called the Bloody Scouts was gonna ambush the settlement at Little Eden. My brother James was there. I kept my head down and moved along. As I cooked dinner that night, my mind was swirling. I'd heard of the Bloody Scouts and knew they lived up to their name. They'd murder any Patriots they found. I couldn't let that happen to my brother or those other brave boys. But I didn't want to break my promise to my father. He'd been injured in the early days of Revolution and physically couldn't make a high-speed trip up to Little Eden. And I knew he'd never allow me to go out of fear of my safety. So I decided not to tell him what I had learned. All throughout the meal, and even after my father went to bed, I agonized over what to do. But then I saw the truth. The colonies had to disobey the unjust demands of tyranny to assert their independence from King George. And this was the moment when I had to disobey to assert my independence too. I had to act. Right now. The clock was ticking, and horseback was the fastest way to go. But my horse had thrown that shoe and couldn't be ridden. My brother had a big black stallion called Dandy. He was half wild and wouldn't let anyone but James near him. Didn't matter. Dandy was my only choice. I went into the boys' room, found some of James's old clothes, and put them on. It was dark in the barn, and Dandy shied when I got near. But then he smelled James on the clothes and calmed down enough for me to throw a saddle on him and climb up. The full moon lit our way, and to reach Little Eden, we'd have to ford the Tiger River. This road led to a wide, shallow section where we could cross. Dandy was a powerful animal, and he drove forward, almost as if he knew we were on a mission to save his master's life. But when we reached the crossing at the Tiger River, Dandy reared back and refused to go further. The days of rain had swollen the streams flowing down from the mountains and turned the river into a raging torrent. I'd waded across here many times, but now the river was chest deep. We couldn't turn back. There was no time to hesitate. I tied Dandy to a tree near the rushing stream and eased into the current. Some dead wood had washed down and hung up on a few jagged rocks. I figured if I could just make it to those branches, I could use them to steady myself to get to the other side. I was just reaching out to grab hold when my foot slipped and I was pulled under. Flailing. In the dark, I could barely tell up from down. If I'd been wearing my skirts instead of James's breeches, I know the weight of them would have drowned me. I don't know how long I was carried along like that, but somehow I ended up on the riverbank, at least a mile downstream of where I'd started. I lay there, gasping for a while, but I knew I had to get to my brother. And at least the wild waters had landed me on the side of the river where I needed to be. Only there was no path here. To get back to the road to Little Eden, I had to pick my way through brambles and undergrowth. And thankfully, I had the river to use as a guide, and I just kept moving upstream. When I reached the spot I've been trying to reach, there across the river, I saw Dandy looking back at me like I was some kind of fool. He snorted and tossed his head as if to say, "What are you waiting for, girl? Go!" And I turned and I ran towards Little Eden. My heart was pounding as my brain spun out a series of what-ifs. What if I'm too late and the British surprise our boys before I get there? What if they intercept me along the way and punish or kill me? What if my father only finds out I disobeyed him after they arrest him and confiscate his land? I was full of fears. But courage means taking action, even when you're afraid. And there it was, Little Eden! I burst into the encampment and roused the boys. My brother James was surprised to see me, especially wearing his clothes. I warned them of the ambush when they scrambled to throw their belongings together. I sent them off in one direction and headed back in the other. We made our escape! The British arrived not 10 minutes later to find an empty camp. When I reached the crossing at the Tiger River, the floodwaters had receded enough for me to make it back across. Sopping wet, I climbed onto Dandy and we galloped towards home. By the time my father woke up, I was dried off, back in my own clothes, and making breakfast. A lot of lives were saved because of that wild adventure, and it wasn't long before the tides of battle turned in favor of the Patriots. And I guess you know the rest of that story. It's why instead of being in a British colony, we're here in South Carolina, in the United States of America. And if there's a moral I can share with you, it's this. Never underestimate what a 15-year-old girl can do when she puts her mind and heart to it.